When wood finishes get dents and scratches, a common method for repairing the damage is called a burn-in. This procedure involves using a heated flat blade knife to melt high-sheen hard resins, low-sheen hard resins, or hard waxes into the damage, and then disguising the fill to look like the finish. Some knives are heated by an electric filament, while others are heated in a small electric oven. Still others are heated using butane. Regardless of the heating process, each knife must be prepared the first time it is used by rubbing the edge across a sheet of 400 sandpaper to level the edges and remove any burrs. Burrs that are left on the edge will cause scratches in the finish as the blade is drawn across the wood. Be careful to keep the knife flat so the blade does not get rounded. We'll go through the process of using each type of burn-in stick, starting with the hard resin stick. Remember to wash off any waxes from the area around the damage with a wax wash. Also, remember to scrape out any loose wood pieces and eliminate splinters with a knife. For high-traffic areas such as tabletops, we use high-sheen resin burn-in sticks that are hard enough to hold a very even surface and durable enough to take some abuse. Begin by deciding whether to use a transparent or opaque stick. We'll start with the opaque sticks. Pick the color that best matches the background color of the wood, or, in other words, the color if no grain were present. Almost always this will be the lightest color. The sticks can be melted together to achieve the required color. Melt the high-sheen resin burn-in stick onto the blade of the knife and direct the flow into the damage. It is important that you slightly overfill the area to make sure the damage is properly filled, leaving no voids. Let cool. Wipe off the burn-in knife onto a rag so the blade stays clean and smooth. Apply a paste release agent over and around the filled area to protect the surrounding finish and to prevent excess burn-in material from adhering. We are using burn-in balm. Wherever the release agent is applied, the burn-in stick will not adhere while in a melted state. Begin to gently pull the burn-in knife over the damage to remove the excess burn-in stick. Always keep the blade moving when it is in contact with the surface of the wood. The proper way to use the knife is similar to the way airplanes do touch-and-go landings. Stopping the blade will leave a burn mark. It must always be in motion. A person may be tempted to take aim, but as you can see, even a momentary stop causes a significant burn line. The blade should be held almost like a handshake. The angle of the blade in reference to the surface should be somewhere between 15 degrees and 40 degrees. Too high of an angle will cause the knife to scrape finish from the surface. Too low of an angle will not do a good job of taking off the excess. Don't hold the knife as you would a pencil, because doing so will likely cause you to use a motion that results in the angle being too high. As you pull the knife over the filled area, the flat blade of the hot knife will drag the excess burn-in stick off the damaged area and into the surrounding release agent where it will not stick. Clean the blade often while performing this procedure. After the repair is level, allow it to cool and then wipe away the excess release agent. Analyze the grain pattern to determine whether or not an open grain should continue over the spot you filled. This would be common on open grain woods like oak, walnut, and mahogany. If an open grain should exist where you filled, use the edge of the blade of the burn-in knife or a thinner blade such as a curved blade to melt the grain pattern into the filled area. Use very little pressure with the blade at a very low angle and with quick movement so the line created will be small. You may have to melt the burn-in material out of the grain around the patch. Once you've cut the grain texture back into the patched area, smooth the surface using waterproof P400A or P800A sandpaper with a lubricant. Sanding strokes should be light using a back-and-forth motion with the grain, keeping in mind not to sand through the color. When sanding is complete, clean the surface with wax wash to remove any release agent residue which would cause an adhesion problem with lacquer. Use either an aerosol or a special marker designed to create a barrier over the burn-in to seal it from the lacquer that will eventually be applied. Here we have an oak door that has two burn-ins. On one, we are applying the aerosol burn-in sealer. On the other burn-in, we're applying the marker version. Complete the repair by adjusting the color as needed, add grain, and then top coat the spot with the proper coating. We will get to these steps later, but now let's go on with other burn-in techniques. As previously mentioned, high-sheen resin sticks also come in clear sticks and colored transparent sticks. Let's use the clear stick next. It can be used on dents caused by blunt objects where a depression resulted, but no color was lost, as is the case on this spot. The lighting around the camera is reflecting on the spot where the dent has occurred. The clear resin stick will fill the depression and bring the surface back to being level without any coloring required. The technique is the same as the colored burn-in stick. Sometimes a little bit of color will help bring the surface back to a normal look, in which case a lightly colored transparent stick will work. Small amounts of color added into the clear stick will result in custom semi-transparent sticks. Next, we will fill a damaged edge using a heating oven with separate knives. Of course, any type of burn-in knife could be used. We're using these just to expose you to the different types of knives. The first two knives are flat-edged. The first has sharp corners that are useful for opening grain. The second has more metal, which allows it to hold heat longer. The third has a flat beveled edge that makes it particularly useful for cutting in grain. The fourth has a curved blade that is handy for non-flat surfaces, such as chair seats or carvings. Now we'll address the damaged edge. Damaged edges can be more difficult to repair. In order to help form the edge, apply a strip of masking tape to the horizontal edge of the damage. Drip the melted burn-in stick down into the crevice formed by the damage and the masking tape. Remove the excess burn-in stick with the knife and the burn-in balm. Make sure to clean the knife before returning it into the oven. Remove the masking tape. In order to shape the edge, sand with P400A waterproof sandpaper and a block using a lubricant. As mentioned earlier, low-sheen resin burn-in sticks are also available. They come in many wood tones, but there isn't a clear stick. The low-sheen resin sticks are treated very much like the high-sheen resin sticks. First, we're holding a high-sheen resin stick near the damage. Notice how shiny it is. Now we will compare it to a low-sheen resin stick. Notice the lower sheen. We are fixing a gouge on a round table leg to show you the burn-in technique required for working on round surfaces. In this case, the edge of the knife must be drawn around the contour of the leg. If the knife were drawn down the length of the leg, the repair over the gouge would be flat instead of rounded. In this case, we are using a low-sheen resin plane stick and a self-starting butane-powered burn-in knife. Again, any type of knife may be used. We are attempting to expose you to all types of burn-in knives. Melt the stick on the knife and flow it into the damage. Apply some burn-in balm around the damage. Level the repair by pulling the knife over the damage in the direction of the circumference of the leg. As usual, once the area cools, wipe off the excess release agent. Smooth the area using P400A waterproof sandpaper with a lubricant and clean with wax wash. The fill can then be color adjusted, grained, and coated. It's important that we show you another type of butane-powered burn-in knife. This type of knife has to be started with a match or a lighter. We are using a brand new unused knife. Notice that when the knife is started for the first time, a flame burns for a short time. The flame is then replaced by a glow in the stem of the knife. The knife is ready for use when the glowing begins. To begin the repair, color the damage with a background marker. Background markers will not turn dark on bare wood, as do most other markers. We're adding color so the fill will not have a light halo around the edges. Be sure to wipe off any color on the surface. For this repair, we will use a quick fill burn-in stick. Quick fill burn-in sticks are also appropriate for use on cabinets, furniture, wainscoting, and most indoor wood applications. The quick fill burn-in must be softened by heat to enable it to fill the damage properly and efficiently. We'll use a flameless heat gun as a heat source. Pulling the trigger causes the gun to heat. No flame is exposed, but the heat is quite intense, more than enough to soften the quick fill stick. Caution should be taken by the user not to get burned. Bring the quick fill stick near the end of the heat gun. Apply the heat until the exposed area becomes shiny and soft. While the stick is melted, apply it to the damage by rubbing it in with good pressure. Lighter pressure can be used on the last few strokes. We'll use a leveler card to take away the excess burn-in material. Start with the high areas that have accumulated at the edges. Then wear away the excess over the damaged area by pulling the card across it. The goal is to wear it level a little at a time. Notice how small amounts of excess have accumulated on the edge of the card. Use a clean part of the card to continue wearing away the excess. Too much pressure will result in pulling some burn-in material out of the damage. Very light pressure at the end of the cleaning is appropriate. The color must then be adjusted to blend with the color of the surrounding finish. We're going to use blend-all sticks. One matches the lightest color of the flake of the wood and the other the darker color of the wood, more like the grain color. Start with the lighter color. Then add the darker over the lighter. The two will blend to create the correct tone. In order to complete the repair, we have to apply a top coat. In this case, we will use a pre-catalyzed lacquer of the correct sheen. The lacquer blends the sheen and livens the color of the repair.